Hello and welcome to Gardening Australia, where this week we're talking about garden critters, how to attract them, how to manage them, and why they're so important in your garden. On the show this week, Jerry's planting for pest control, Sophie's planting for some autumn colour,
and that colour will come from one of my favourite bulbs. They're these amazing survivors. They're Amaryllis belladonna.
and Colin's creating some spectacular and some edible hanging baskets that will help attract butterflies and bees. Without our creepy crawly garden friends, there would be no gardens. They're an essential and integral part of the garden web of life. Now, Jerry's a bit of an expert on them, and he actively encourages the right ones into his garden.
This is one of my favourite spice trees. It's cinnamon, and if you look carefully, you'll see one of my favourite predators, the praying mantis. These gobble up grasshoppers, and by encouraging this and another range of predators into my garden, my crops are well defended, and that makes me very happy. A garden is a community of plants, microorganisms, people and animals, including this beast, an assassin bug. When I moved to my garden in 2003, it was a wilderness, but I've been keeping a checklist of animals like mammals, birds, reptiles and insects, and I've got 331 species which now call my garden home. To encourage such a variety of creatures, you need to provide a variety of plants, which provide shelter, pollen, nectar, and by not spraying, allowing a few pests to be there so that something like this assassin bug has got lunch. And what that means for me as a gardener is less spraying and more food. This year I've dedicated the whole area around my lawn to encouraging predators into the garden. And in this border, I've used a mixture of flowers, vegetables and herbs. The cosmos are going strong, the Chinese spinach is going to seed, and the basil will soon follow. And that's why I've cleared this boomerang bed. I've dug the soil over, I've worked in some compost, it's ready to plant. I've selected a range of predator-enticing plants from 3 families, the daisy family, the carrot family and the mint family. Now, whenever I plant a bed out, it's always a good idea, I find, to space things out so that you don't make it too crowded. But I still put in more plants than I actually need to grow to maturity. Just in case of failures, it means I still get a good display. I'm starting with coriander seed, and I'm going to sow this over the bed and plant over it. Last year when I grew coriander, I counted 23 insects visiting it. Coriander is a magnet. Of course, coriander is a member of the carrot family, as is Queen Anne's lace. This is an ornamental, very compact and very pretty. But if you really want to get predators in your garden, the best one I've found so far is giant flat-leaved Italian parsley. It has enormous amounts of flower, plus it flowers for a long period of time. It attracts wasps because the adults need nectar. Their young prefer meat, and they'll sting the caterpillars, lay eggs on them and control them in your garden. This bronze fennel is a handsome plant. It's a bit tricky to grow in the subtropics, but if I get flowers, I'll get predators as well. Dill is nowhere near so difficult. This will flower almost all year round in the subtropics, and its flowers are really attractive, this time particularly to a group of flies. Now, flies are parasitic. Most of our flies will control caterpillars, so this is a wonderful combination of herb and pest control. And now to the daisy family. I've got some goldenrod. Very old-fashioned. You wouldn't think it would do particularly well in southeastern Queensland, and yet it's hardly without a flower. It's a real magnet, and it provides habitat, places for egg laying, and that's important if you want predators. putting in some cosmos. These are dwarfs, so they'll fit into a small bed like this. Now, the important thing about the daisy family is they provide lots of pollen, and that brings in hoverflies into gardens, and their young fight aphids. And finally, the mint family. I'm trying some bells of Ireland. Now, the mint family has broad appeal to a wide range of beneficials, and that's because it produces attractive pollen and nectar. I'm going to mulch the bed now because the plants are looking a bit thirsty. Most people would realise that mulch feeds the soil, it conserves moisture, keeps the roots cool, and of course it looks nice. But I've found there's a side benefit. Chopped mulch like this sugarcane is just what black hairy flower wasps look for, so they can lay their egg chambers, and they are brilliant predators of curl grubs. And now everything needs a really good drink. As these plants begin establishing, they'll draw in predator insects from far and wide, and that means less damage, less spraying and less work for this lazy gardener.
Now, no garden would be complete without these wonderful characters, worms. It's time to start worm farming on the verge, and I've come to visit an incredibly passionate man who's right into the wonderful world of worms. Ecologist Peter Rutherford is the educator at a sustainable living education centre in Sydney's north, and there's nothing he doesn't know about worms. So why should we farm worms, Pete?
Well, two really important reasons, Costa. Food scraps, when you throw them in a landfill, causes groundwater pollution. When you give those same food scraps to worms, they turn it into plant food. Beautiful, beautiful worm castings. Show you. Look at that.
Oh, look at all that in there.
That's pure plant food, full of available nutrients, beneficial microbes. That's what makes plants healthy, and that's what makes people healthy.
The worms in worm farms are surface living species. You'll need about 1,000 to get started, and that'll cost you $50 from a breeder. So Pete, how do you go about setting up a worm farm?
Well, there's lots of ways, Costa. I've seen them in old bathtubs, in wooden boxes, plastic boxes. But one of the easiest ways, I think, is this type of thing here. The first tray is solid like that, collects water. So you put a little bucket under the tap.
Okay.
Leave the tap open all the time. This tray here, it's going to be their home tray. Pop that one in.
Nice residence.
Yep. A sheet of newspaper in the bottom, stops soil falling through. Get some soil out of your garden, or nice composted, must be organic. This is where we put the worms in.
Welcome.
Tip them all in, spread them out.
Boys and girls. Oh, look at that. They're loving it.
And we give that a good watering now to settle it in, please.
Oh, okay.
Until water's running out the tap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, beautiful. And make sure that the bottom of this next tray is touching.
It's pushing
very
against
important.
it.
Yes. Okay, so pop that on. Put a couple of handfuls more soil in here now, just to join up the trays. Just spread that out. So just join up the trays.
Oh, yeah.
Then you get some food scraps, thin layers regularly. Again, you add some soil on top. The reason for this is because worms don't have teeth, and they take in some soil and they grind it in a thing called their gizzard.
Okay.
Okay, so this is their teeth. A little bit more water.
Okay.
Put a blanket on. Now, whatever people use for a blanket, you can buy these commercial ones. Make sure air can move through it, okay? You want air movement through the system.
So not newspaper?
No, don't use newspaper, because it limits air movement through the system. And then the lid goes on, and that's the process. Easy. Anyone can do it.
Pete, what sort of management tips can you share for the worm farmer?
Okay, there's a few key ones, Costa. Firstly, keep it in the shade. Your worms will die in the sun. Once a week, you need to put in like a sprinkling of dolomite lime, about a teaspoon or so, and then water it really well until water's running out the bottom. The dolomite stops it getting too acid from things like citrus and fruit and other things like that. If it starts to smell, it's telling you there's not enough air in there, so you probably put in too much food compared to what the worms can eat, and stop feeding it for a week or so, and it'll come good again.
Now, what do you do when the top tray, the feeding tray, is full?
Yeah, vital question, Costa. It'll take a couple of months to get to that point. So let me take you over to one that's already full. Most of the worms now will have moved out of that home tray up into this top tray. So you lift this whole top tray off, most of your worms will be there. Oh, and look at what this is the beautiful casting, the worm poo, the gold. So you take this one out, and that's going to go to your garden. You then bring this one back, which was your top tray, your feeding tray. Take your cover off. Get your empty tray now, the one you've cleaned out, back on there. A couple of handfuls of soil like before, and we're away, ready to begin again.
The castings can be used in a number of ways. You can dig them into the garden, spread them over the soil and cover with mulch, or mix them with water. The worm juice that flows into the bucket is also a great plant food. Dilute it to the colour of weak tea and away you go. Now, Pete, people often get confused whether to compost or worm farm or both. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they do, Costa. I like both. The reason being, worm farming is just for food scraps and a bit of soil to give you beautiful casting in the worm juice. Your composting is for your volume materials, like your garden materials, leaves and grass clippings and things like that. So it's volume for composting, concentrated worms.
That's really a concise way of looking at it. Thanks for all your worm wisdom today. It's been a treat.
It's been a pleasure, Costa. And before you go, I've got a little present for you.
Oh, look at this.
Some of my friends to take
Some
with
worms. Fantastic. Well, I promise to multiply them.
you. For your Verge friends.
Come and visit.
Thanks, Costa.
See ya.
See ya.
I can't wait to get these new residents back home to the Verge. But for now, it's over to Colin, who's potting up some hanging baskets to help attract valuable pollinators.
Hanging baskets are great for any garden. With the right plant, you can have instant colour, and those colourful flowers will attract bees and other pollinating insects. They're ideal for courtyards and balconies. I'm doing two types of hanging baskets, one filled with trailing culinary herbs, and the other this unusual ball of hanging flowering colour. All you need for this is firstly a hanging basket. Then you need a liner to go inside it. Now the liner normally comes like that, but you can see that I've cut it in half. I've taken off all these long pieces to go around the top. Then I put that base right in the bottom of the basket. Now I'm going to fill it up with a premium grade potting mix. When you plant up a hanging basket, it's important to use a few of these things, water crystals. Because the basket, all the surfaces are exposed to the air and wind movement, so they dry out a whole lot quicker than the same plants would do in a pot. So a few water crystals over the top. Then the next thing you need is a little bit of this stuff, controlled release fertiliser, just to feed the plants for a little bit longer. And now for the plants. And you might be surprised, I'm using parsley because the green foliage on the parsley is really quite decorative. So a couple of those go in and you just lay them on top of the potting mix, directly opposite each other. Then to get some more colour, I'm going to have a lobelia, which is nice and blue, and then the white alyssum, in she goes. Now the next step is to replace the liners that I cut off so I can fill it up to the top. So in they go, push them down as far as I can, and they overlap a bit. And that allows me to get all that new potting mix in on the top because there's yet another layer of plants to go in here yet. So the last bit goes in, and now we're ready for the potting mix. Just smooth out the potting mix. Now these petunias are the final act, so I'm going to put 4 of them, just space them around the top of the basket. And they'll give that colour, which is so important. In a week or two, that's going to be great after I water it with a good seaweed extract. And next I'm going to show you how to plant a tasty hanging herb planter. Now, this time I'm not going to cut it up like I did last time. I'm going to leave it complete. So just firm it in all around and get it fitting nicely. Next thing, in goes the premium grade potting mix. There's no point in putting valuable plants in a second-rate potting mix and watching them die. The plants I'm going to use, the first one is French tarragon. Now, that's looking a bit daggy at the moment, but it's going to come good in no time at all. Then I'm going to put in a bit of oregano, and this will give me a nice colour. And it too is going to tumble over the edge really stunningly. Last but not least, in this corner here, I'm going to put a bit of thyme. Now, that'll also fall over the edge and it'll just be brilliant. Now I've got the space in the middle that looks a bit bare and I'd like to get a little bit of height to give the whole basket character. And this is just boxwood basil and it's great, so I'll put it right in the middle so it gives the whole thing a bit of height. All I have to do now is water it with the old seaweed extract, hang it up and away it goes. Give these two easy projects a go. Trailing herbs that are easy to pick and spectacular eye-level colour.
What a great way to bring a little bit of garden into your life, even if you don't have the space for one. Fortunately, here on The Verge, we've got plenty of space. And you may recall a couple of weeks ago, we set out this herb maze here. And on the weekend, the community came together and they've planted it out. Well, it's almost complete, and I can't wait to see the kids and the adults start to explore the maze here around me.
I don't get them in my own garden, but I must say whenever I go to somewhere like the Melbourne Botanic Gardens and I see the blue wrens moving through the bushes, I'm absolutely enraptured by them. I think they're just the most exquisite birds.
The ladybird would have to be my favourite garden critter because she gets in there and cleans up all that aphid larvae without me doing a thing.
Ladybugs are pretty cool, but I like our natives. Say the bandicoot. They might mess your garden up a bit, but they're so very cute.
My favourite garden critter would be either birds visiting or butterflies. I just love them. Birds in particular, because they really are lovely visitors to any garden.
Well, at the moment, it's the pheasant cuckoo, and this is a native bird, and it makes a living out of stealing baby birds and their eggs from the nests. But at the moment, it's getting on really well. It's moved into the garden, and it likes being out with the guinea pigs when they're on the lawn. They seem to enjoy each other's friendship.
Probably woolly wagtails and honey eaters that come in and out of the garden. They eat insects and they just bring the place to life.
My favourite gardening critter, without doubt, is the earthworm. As Charles Darwin once said, they are the intestines of the earth, and never has such a lowly creature played such an important role in the history of the world.
This is classic suburbia. We're surrounded by houses and gardens and cars, but there's more accommodation up above, but not for us. And I'm about to meet the landlord. There's the man. It's Joe Tonga, a bloke who's mad about urban wildlife, but he's clearly watching something, so I'm being a bit quiet. G'day, Joe. Shh, Josie. How are you, mate? Good to see you. What have you got? Up there, roosting, is a southern billbook owl. I can see a brown patch. He's sleeping during the day, as owls do. Yeah. And he lives around here because he's moved into one of the boxes. Right. And he loves to roost in that tree. That's his particular favourite tree. Nice and shady. Nice and shady. Nice and thick. Yeah. Quiet for him. Yeah. He stays there all day, sleeping. So, Joe, this is a fairly regular backyard. We've got a cubby house and lawn, but there's nesting boxes everywhere. What's the story?
Well, a little bit unusual. About 10 years ago, I built, because I'm a carpenter, a box out of pickets, just normal fence pickets. Yeah. Stuck it up into a back tree, neighbour's tree. 6 weeks later, what did I have? A southern billbook owl. So I thought, this is
first
amazing.
First try.
Yeah, just luck, just luck. And I thought, well, I'll put another box up. So I did. And then what happened? Parrots.
So what's that telling us?
There's food out there for them,
yep,
but no homes. No homes because these parrots need big trees with hollows in them before they can go into it and
they're
claim
disappearing.
it as home.
So this is a parlote box, this one?
Yes, this is they only need a very small box, and it's got this little bit of hollow on the front and a very small hole. They want the small hole so they can just fit in and they dart in like a little bullet. So it's just got a little folding roof, but you don't have to have a
So
little
this
roof.
has been an active box, obviously, because the birds have put that in there?
Yes, yes. What they do, the mum and dad go to my paper bark tree and they strip the little bits of the tree off and they bring it in and grass pieces.
Isn't that beautiful?
And the whole lot, the entire box gets filled with it. And what they do is they create a little tunnel, and it's like about the size of a 20-cent piece, and it goes down into the nesting chamber at the bottom, about the size of a tennis ball. And that's where mum lays her 3 little eggs. They're very, very small.
So you've got nesting boxes on pretty much every tree on the site, as well as your neighbours' properties. But creating habitats more than that, tell us what you've done at the front here, for example.
Okay, well, I've tried to create a different tiered level of the vegetation, starting with the big trees, of course, the established trees, and then planting ones like this one here.
So mid-level stuff almost?
Yep, mid-level, and then I start going down to the lower level stuff, which is the grevilleas,
so you've got shrubs. Okay, so Callothamnus, for example, your grevilleas, bird attracting. But even grasses down below here.
Yeah, this is for the lower animals, things like the geckos, lizards, even the frogs come from the pond, hide into there. They like this sort of thick foliage around here, so you're creating a little haven sort of thing.
So it's kind of almost refuge and so forth. But how about water? What role does water play in a dry climate like Perth?
Very important, very, very important. Now, if you want to have birds coming to your garden, you've got to have water. Very, very important. But the trick is, of course, one, you've got to have high enough from the ground, because if you have it too low, the birds will not go to it so much because the cats will get them. Yeah. And they know that.
What a wonderful visit. I reckon you'd be struggling to find anyone as keen as Joe when it comes to attracting wildlife to a garden. And just imagine if we took just a few of his tips home to our own places. Think about how our suburbs could be.
Thanks, Josh. It's amazing how a little bit of effort from our side can provide habitat for all kinds of creatures. Now it's over to Sophie in South Australia, who's doing a little bit of autumn planting.
My garden mightn't look like much, but I've got plans. We've just acquired an extra 1.5 hectares of land around our home. We are in the Adelaide Hills, but we're on the dry side of the hills, and our rainfall is about the same as the Adelaide Plains. As you can see, we're totally exposed with no shelter, full sun all day, and wind 24/7. So what I'm going to start on is creating the new driveway for the property. This will be a dry border, which I'm going to plant with plants that won't require water once established. And to start off, I've got these Russian olives. One of the reasons why these trees aren't as popular as they should be is they look dreadful in a pot. But the reason you should grow them is they have the most beautiful silver grey foliage, which turns butter yellow in autumn before it drops off, because they are deciduous. Now, this foliage is looking good here, but in actual fact, I'm going to have to snip these lower branches off, because one of the things about these trees is they're actually quite thorny. Now, that doesn't matter if you want some security or you're looking to keep stock out of a garden, but in this case, we're wanting to be able to walk near them, so we don't want to get skewered. So I'm taking all the lower foliage off. These plants are so drought tolerant. They come from the Mediterranean region, southern Europe and through to Western Russia, all the dry parts, and they'll grow brilliantly here. Another reason why I love these trees is they have the most beautifully scented flowers. They have an incredible aroma of honey. The soil here is actually not that bad. It's a good structure, it's a loam. However, what it's lacking is organic matter. So I'm actually going to put some compost. Well, actually, this is probably more like aged animal manure and a bit of straw mixed in there. Of course, improves the water holding capacity. And now I'm going to plant. An interesting thing about this tree is if it was growing in the ground, we could actually see nodules on its roots, because it actually fixes nitrogen through the nodules that work with the bacteria in the soil. Now, I'm just going to put a bit more soil in and lift it, and then we'll backfill. These trees will actually grow 6 to 8 metres high once established. I'll need to water it in and mulch it well, and then it will survive by itself. But for now, I've got 2 more trees to plant. I'm giving myself 2 years to get the garden established, and even though it's new now, I can see in my mind how it's going to look. Because this is the entranceway, one thing this area will need though is bold, bright splashes of colour. And that colour will come from one of my favourite bulbs. They're these amazing survivors. They're Amaryllis belladonna, known as naked ladies or belladonnas. They're South African bulbs that come from the western side of the Cape, so their climate in nature is just like here. They get their common name from the habit of flowering before the foliage in autumn. They send up these sturdy spikes of flowers, which are either pink or white, which are also beautifully scented. I think they smell like apricot soap. And they send up these flowers before there's any foliage in sight. As far as hardy goes, these guys are the ultimate survivors. When you plant them fairly high so that only their neck's out of the ground. And the reason why that is they actually like to bake. They need the heat to flower well. Now, the interesting thing is they'll grow in this soil with no soil preparation. They'll flower without supplementary watering. Actually, if I watered them, they probably won't flower. But just one word of warning, they're a little bit temperamental and they usually sulk for a couple of years after they're first planted. This is going to look spectacular when it's finished and I can't wait to see them flower. However, I've got about another 80 bulbs to go, so you're going to have to leave me to it and I'll see you next time. 69 to go to the most spectacular drive around the hills.
No matter what 2, 4, 6 or even 8-legged creatures you have in your garden, they all add to the rich web of life. Don't they, Kinky? Well, that's it for this week. Join us for next week's show, which is all about family. Bye, Ma. Next week, Josh introduces us to his mum and her beautiful, tranquil oasis in Fremantle.
When you were a little boy, you were always interested in, I thought you'd either be a vet or an environmental scientist.
And I'll be meeting another member of the Gardening Australia team.
Welcome, Costa. It's so good to meet you.
It's good to meet you too. I feel like I know you from the telly. We can't wait. We'll see you then. Hi, Costa here. If you've missed an episode of Gardening Australia, catch up on ABC iView or go to the Gardening Australia website. It's too easy.